Let me tell you something sick. There are tiny organisms that can remote control other animals like a PlayStation character. While we're still getting upset about Netflix recommendations, nature has already developed perfect mind control. Today we're looking at the absolutely craziest biological puppet masters. And spoiler alert, you're probably already carrying one of them inside you. So don't worry if you suddenly get a craving for cat food during this video. The brain-eating amoeba from hell. You dive headfirst into a seemingly harmless lake on a hot summer day. What you don't know, with that dive you've picked up a microscopic intruder that's currently looking for the most direct route to your brain. Through your nose, along the olfactory nerve, like a GPS with only one destination, your frontal lobe. Naegleria fowleri, lovingly called the brain-eating amoeba, is not a normal parasite. It's a single-celled death march with teeth made of enzymes. Its specialty, primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, PAM, a brain inflammation so aggressive that even zombies would be jealous. The single-celled organism basically decomposes the brain of infected individuals after infection and is considered one of the deadliest parasites for humans. Within a few days after infection, the horror trip begins. Sudden, extreme headaches, fever, nausea, vomiting, hallucinations, seizures, loss of smell and taste. Personality changes. Victims often appear confused, irritated, or completely beside themselves, as if someone had booted up the brain in the wrong mode. And that's still the friendly phase. Shortly after come consciousness disorders, coma, and usually death. In over 97% of cases, the infection is fatal. The brain is literally liquefied. The amoeba doesn't feed on blood or flesh. It's into brain cells. It eats through nerve tissue like through an all-you-can-eat buffet. In doing so, it produces enzymes that dissolve brain cells, a kind of biochemical brain melter. At the same time, it triggers a massive immune reaction that destroys the remaining brain tissue as well. Infection only happens when water enters through the nose. Drinking is harmless. But nasal rinses with tap water? Not the best idea. Infection usually occurs in warm, freshwater lakes, hot springs, or poorly chlorinated swimming pools, especially in southern U.S. states like Texas or Florida, where the water is warm and people are brave. From 1962 to 2024, 167 infection cases were reported in the USA, of which only 4 survived. Examples: in 2011, 2 deaths after nasal rinses with tap water were reported in Louisiana. There were also repeated cases where children or teenagers died within a few days after swimming in warm lakes. One of the most famous cases, a 12-year-old boy from Florida who suddenly complained of extreme headaches after jumping into the water. 3 days later, he was dead. The emerald cockroach wasp, the neurosurgeon without a license. Here we have the absolute artist among brain hackers. This wasp performs operations that would make any neurosurgeon pale with envy, and without any degree, just with millions of years of evolution as training. The attack occurs in 2 phases like a carefully planned raid. First, a brief sting serves for temporary paralysis of the front legs, then the masterpiece. The wasp pokes with its stinger specifically into certain brain regions of the cockroach and injects neurotoxins. It takes all the time in the world, as if participating in a surgical documentary. The second sting manipulates the brain, more precisely, the subesophageal ganglion, which controls behaviors like escape reflexes. The wasp moves its stinger in a probing manner and uses sensory information to hit the target tissue, like a biological navigation system. The result is disturbingly perfect. The cockroach retains all its abilities. It can fly, climb, dance the Macarena, but it completely loses its will to survive. The wasp then leads it by the antenna, like a well-behaved dog, to the vet, except the vet is its hungry larvae. The brilliant thing about it is that the cockroach sits patiently while being eaten alive. It could easily escape, but it thinks, "Nah, it's okay. Go ahead and eat me. Toxoplasma gondii, your secret roommate." Now it's getting personal. Toxoplasma gondii could already be chilling in your head and redecorating your personality. This parasite is so good at breaking in that it not only hacks CIA servers, but then also sets up its own IT department there. In mice, Toxoplasma does something incredible. It migrates to the amygdala, the fear center, and completely switches off the fear of cats. Some infected mice are even attracted to cat smell. The mouse practically walks around with a sign that says, "Free fast food here." In humans, it gets really cringe. Studies show that infected people become more risk-taking, more sociable, and sometimes more aggressive. According to studies, men tend toward more aggressive behavior, women toward increased empathy. A connection with schizophrenia has also been discussed. Your spontaneous decision to book a bungee jump at 3 a.m. might not have been your decision, but that of a microscopic tenant who's obviously an adrenaline junkie. The parasite forms cysts in the brain and can live there for decades like a subtenant who never moves out. According to estimates, 1/3 of the world's population is infected. The probability that you currently have an unnoticed roommate influencing your Netflix choices is therefore pretty high. Sweet dreams. The Gordian worm, the GPS hacker. Here we have absolute madness. This worm lives in crickets but needs water to mate. Problem: crickets hate water like vampires hate sunlight. Solution: brain hacking of the next level. The worm can grow up to 1 meter long while living in the cricket. Imagine having 1 meter of wire in your body. When it's ready to reproduce, it produces proteins that completely destroy the cricket's navigation system. These proteins look deceptively similar to normal insect proteins, perfect molecular mimicry. They change gene expression in the cricket brain and influence geotactic and phototactic behavior. The cricket completely loses track of where up and down is and how it should react to light. The cricket jumps around completely crazy, approaches the water, and finally jumps in, usually with fatal outcome. The worm wriggles out, mates, and its eggs are eaten by water insects, which later go on land and are eaten by new crickets. It's like a computer virus, but for insect brains. Scientists use these insights to understand how navigation works in the brain, from the smallest insect to us humans. Rabies virus, the rage mode activator. Let's continue with the classic. Rabies transforms harmless animals into aggressive zombies. But this is no coincidence. The virus is an absolute strategist. It drives directly into the brain as if it had a VIP ticket and starts a chaos program there. The virus does 3 things simultaneously. It turns aggression to maximum, makes animals drool like a broken faucet, and simultaneously makes swallowing impossible. The result? A drooling, bite-crazy zombie that's perfectly programmed to gnaw on anyone who comes near. It's as if someone simultaneously set your anger controller to berserker mode, filled your mouth with water, and then said, "You can't swallow, but go ahead and bite everyone." The virus took millions of years to perfect this combination. Darwin would cry with pride, or fear, hard to say. The Wasp-Virus Dream Team. Prepare yourselves for a story that shows nature is a sick genius. A wasp lays its egg in a living ladybug. Sounds like a horror movie already. Wait, it gets even more ridiculous. The wasp mama injects a virus while doing so, like a cocktail from hell. 3 weeks later, the larva hatches, tunnels out, and builds its cocoon outside. And now comes the absolute madness. The ladybug becomes an unpaid bodyguard and guards the thing. How does this work? While the larva was inside, it switched off the beetle's immune system like an annoying alarm clock. But as soon as it's out, the immune system completely freaks out and fights against the virus. This immune war in the brain makes the beetle the perfect protector. The wasp basically said, "Hey virus, you take over the brainwashing, I have other things to do." That's outsourcing on a level that would make any CEO pale with envy. The zombie fungus Ophiocordyceps. Welcome to the absolute king of brainwashing. This fungus turns ants into remote-controlled bio-robots. If Tesla thought they had cool autopilot features, then they haven't seen this fungus yet. The attack proceeds like a perfectly planned heist. First, the spores drill through the exoskeleton and trigger cramps that make the ant fall from the tree. Then the fungus systematically infiltrates the entire body and hacks everything: the biological clock, the sense of smell, movement control. The ant becomes a zombified GPS system that wanders around until it finds the perfect location for a fungus startup. There the ant dies, and the fungus builds a stalk from its neck. After a few weeks, this stalk shoots off spores like a biological confetti cannon and creates new zombie ants. The fungus has developed a tailor-made version for each ant species. It's as if it programmed an entire software suite for different operating systems, except that in the end, a fungus grows out of your head. What does this mean for us humans? Don't panic. Our brains are so complex that most parasites fail at them like tourists at American bureaucracy. Besides, we have skull bones and the blood-brain barrier as a natural firewall that protects the brain from many pathogens, toxins, and also medications. Nevertheless, some pathogens can overcome it. For example, Rabies virus, Toxoplasma, certain bacteria, but this is rare and usually pathological. Research on these biological hackers helps us understand how brains work. Maybe we'll develop better treatments for neurological diseases as a result. Neuroscience learns from parasites how to specifically influence certain brain regions, important for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, depression, epilepsy, etc. Who knows? Maybe we'll ultimately owe the breakthrough in Alzheimer's to a wasp that hypnotizes cockroaches. The irony is, while we worry about AI takeover, nature shows us that successful manipulation usually happens subtly. These parasites were already perfect social engineers before Facebook even existed.